Okay, so we're back working with mirrors. We're going to make a star decoration for a tree or a window, or you can turn it into a doll if you want. 5 points basically. So I have my template and I'm used to using this fabric, and I have decided that this motif here is very nice in the center. So I have gone ahead and done some cutting and some prepping. So putting all this away. So I'm using this pattern here. Now, if you can see it, it's a 5-point star. It's quite basic. So we're talking 5 4-sided diamonds, and I've numbered them because this is there's a bit of hand drawing in this, so they're not exact. So this is, really you should be using exact pieces, but sometimes you just want to draw something and go for it. So if you'll see, I think this is all mirror imaged. I've numbered this 1 and I've pointed towards the middle. I've numbered this 2 and I've pointed towards the middle. And I've also done arrows around which way the numbers go. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I know which is the middle. Now, this isn't going to be exactly English paper piecing, because if you're doing English paper piecing, you would fold down this side, fold down this side, and fold down all 4 sides, and you would have a piece that's fully folded down the whole way around. Now this is a form of English paper piecing, and I'll tell you why I'm not folding down. You'll see from the bits I've already done, I haven't folded down these outer edges, and I haven't sewn them at all. That's because I want to put a plain backing on this. I don't want to do a pieced backing. If I were doing both sides pieced, then I would fold them all down and sew it the normal way. But because I'm using one single piece to back this, I'm going to do this, and it will become clear when I do it. So I have done 4 of these. I'm now going to do this other. Now when I am tacking or basting, I like to use a thread that will show up against the fabric, obviously. And it's also, I don't like wasting thread I'm going to use properly. This is a neon yellow that I don't think I'm ever going to use in anything. So I use up threads I'm not particularly keen on. So I'm going to fold down the 2 short sides, and you'll see I've put an arrow here pointing towards the middle, and the center is where I want it to be folded. So this ensures that I fold down the sides I want to fold down. So I am going to sew right through the paper, and this is ordinary copy paper. And you can reuse them. You take out the stitches carefully, you can reuse the pieces until they literally fall apart. So there's we're not wasting paper here. Now you'll notice I don't fold the point in. This is important. If you want to, what you can do is you can fold it down, and then you can fold it in and fold it in, and you'll get a point. But the point, I don't know if you can see that, but the point can be a little stubby. It's not quite pointed. So I just fold one side and then fold the other side over it, and I have this little thing going on here. Now this is going, right, this little thing here, sorry about that, this is going to be at the back, so we're not going to worry our heads about that. We're just going to carry on sewing right the way through. Nice big tacking stitches. We just want to hold this in place. And there we go. A couple of back stitches here, and we're good to go. Like I say, big stitches. This is all going to come out. So that's the end of that. So this is now going to fit in here like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the thread. I am going to come up the point. Now the nice thing about this is that your point can be anywhere you need it to be, because there's a bit of movement here. You can move this around, and it is a point which we want, because we want the center to join. So I'm going to put the needle up at the point, and then I am going to fold these out of the way. I'm also going to fold this bit out of the way. So I can have a clear run at, get this tucked into the middle there and line these up. Now I am going to do some little slip stitches all the way along, a couple at the start just to back stitch it because we do not want this to be coming out. And you can see that there, that's grand. And I'm just taking up a few threads of the fabric. You know, the more you have involved in this, the more pieces you're doing, the more chances your thread's going to get snagged on bits. So we're going to nip along this one. And this doesn't have to be a big project, doesn't have to be long. You can do this listening to the radio, or I do a lot of stuff listening to the television. I'll watch shows. I've got far too much thread on this needle. In fact, I'm going to get rid of a lot of it. No, use that for something else. So, and now I'm not going to stitch all the way out to the end. I am going to stop. Just like if you were English paper piecing and these were folded down, you wouldn't sew past this point because there's nowhere else to sew. You might go around the corner, but you wouldn't sew past this point. So I'm not going to really sew past this point. I'm going to feel where the edge of the paper is, and I'm going to stop at the edge of the paper or just beyond. And again, this will become clear. And a couple of back stitches to make it nice and secure. Snip. We're not worrying about knots either because these are going to be stuffed. So the last bit, we can see I have gone all the way around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last bit, and you will also see that because I have folded them the same way all the time, I folded right to left and then left. All the little bits, when you sew them together, they will wrap around each other like a pinwheel and lie flat. So systematic folding, and again we go in. I'm going to take out these pins now because I was using the pins to I'm actually going to leave them in for a bit. There, what the pins are doing, being very useful at, is that they are holding a piece of card steady on the fabric and not allowing it to shuffle around, because it can, and you can suddenly find that you have got no seam allowance, because some of you may have guessed this is seam allowance, and some of the other you may have guessed that the reason I'm not going to the end is because when we sew into curves, when we sew into the center of a curve or a internal, point as opposed to an outside one, into the center as close as we can, we need to snip into them. And if we have sewn all the way down to the end and we snip into it, then we're snipping into our stitches, and then we have a whole heap of trouble. So I'm going to make sure these points meet in the middle. I'm going to do a couple of back stitches. And you don't need to pick the same fabric and do a kaleidoscope, and you can pick 5 different fabrics. You can pick you can do a rainbow, you can do any oh, for God's sake, it's your thing. Do whatever fabrics pleases you. But this is a handy one to practice your hand sewing, because hand sewing is pretty important. You need to be able to put a few stitches in there with a needle and thread every so often, rather than just depending on the machine, because the machine doesn't do everything. It can be really hard to get around small corners, and if you can't pick up a needle and do that, and then, well, it can be a bit tricky. So, or you might need different attachments or whatever. So it's just very handy if you are able to pick up a needle then it's a very good thing to get practiced with that needle and be comfortable sewing these little bits. So again, we're finding where the end is, and we're going to eyeball that and just go to the end and stitch beyond, and voila, we have one side of a star. Now, okay, ta-da! And now we want to, these will all lie flat and they behave themselves. Now we're going to do our backing. Note, do try iron your fabrics, it does make things easier. So, can you see that? Yes. So I'm going to pop this, you know, close to the edge, right sides together, and then I'm going to use some pins to pin it into place. And the last one. Now, they're all pinned into place. And to make life easier, I'm going to just cut out this so I'm not dealing with a lot of fabric. Now so. Now one other thing we're going to do is this stuff. I want this to hang up. So I'm going to put a little hangy loop on it. And this is another waist knot, want knot, is when you buy fat quarters, or they're often tied together with some of this stuff in a neat thing. So I am going to use some of this to create a little loop. So here we have our little loop, and I'm going to put a stitch or two in it just to hold it together, because otherwise it will be very annoying because it's going to come apart and it'll just irritate us. So that'll do. Now, this is going to go like this in one of these. So I'm just going to randomly put it here because this is the one I was looking at. Okay, so we tuck that in, tuck it in, and I'm going to make it as straight as I can, otherwise it'll hang crooked, and make sure that few stitches are there. That's great, fantastic. And then pin it all down. That's wonderful. Now we're ready to go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get some more thread in our needle. And we're going to do a very simple little small running stitch all the way around. I lick my thread. So I was told never to lick my thread, but I'm a thread licker. So a little tiny knot. And what I want to do is, to make sure this is tucked in as much as possible, I'm going to start part way down. So we're basically going to sew from here all the way around to here. At least, so we're going to get all the points and indents in, but we're I'm going to tuck this out of the way as much as possible when I'm sewing, so that when the back stitch starts, so when I turn it inside out, it's not going to hang weird. That's the hope. I don't know if we'll get it. So I am just going to do a running stitch, following the paper all the way around. I'll do a little, okay, and this is not going to take very long because we've pinned everything into place, paper and all. We've got a nice clear line to follow. Now my running stitch, I am literally just weaving in and out and in and out and following the line of the paper, and little stitches. I'm going to take this out. And as we come down here, we just sew into the corner here where we have got our the point to aim at, which is I'm going to do little back stitches every so often along the way to secure it. Now we go up the other side. Try not to sew into the paper. That is your guide. Now, you can do this bit with the sewing machine. You absolutely can. Of course you can. You can go in, around, and up and down with the sewing machine and do this bit like that. But there's a great joy in not needing a machine for everything, isn't there? And having something that you can just sit down, you know, as you're chatting with your family or friends or the dog, and you can just sit there and sew away and not need to have your machine set up or clack 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 or anything like that. Only clack 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 is your conversation. And again, the odd back stitch. And you'll notice I am no, super tidy, neat stitcher. In this, I'm whizzing around. Of course, the neater it is, the neater it's going to look. I'm not advocating slapdash. I think here I'm just talking for the sake of talking now. But up to a point. Yep. So we're about halfway around. You'd be very relieved to hear. Now, down the other side. Oh, for God's sake. This reminds me of practice tapes that we used to get from a conductor when I sang in this choir, and he would do recordings of everyone's lines. So you'd get your tape with the alto line on it or the tenor or whatever you were singing, and the tapes were full of him making mistakes and going, oh God, I'll do that again. And we'd be laughing, going, they were kind of charming in their, there was no attempt made to go back and redo it or, start again or edit it out. But I totally understand now why. And I keep looking at the backing fabric going, please tell me it is right sides together, that I haven't, because I've done this before. I've sewn them the wrong way facing, which is just when you have done all the sewing around and then you're looking at it and like, I don't believe this, I don't believe this, I have just sewn, and I can't. And you're looking at the fabric going, will I get away with it? Does it look like it might just be a pale fabric with some faded pattern on it? So now, coming up, just going to go around here and then stop. And then we shall do a bit of trimming, and the trimming is very important too. La-di-da-di-da, down the other side, last one. And there is a bit of leeway when you're talking about things that are padded, because, you know, padding softens many a straight line and straightens many a wobbly one. So I'm just going to go into this inner point and come out the other side, and I'm sewing through all the points and in inner points because they are really tricky to get neat if you're sewing them from the outside. If you're trying to turn them in when you're finished and you're going to be top sewing the closing or substitching the closing. Now, there we go. So you really want to be having them all done. Now, first thing we're going to do is we are going to take out, where's my tiny scissors? Not in here. Right, we are now going to take out all of the yellow. Now this is important because if you don't use a thread that's different to the one you're sewing, when you come to taking out your stitches or snipping through them, if you have to, if you can't easily tell what is your basting thread, there is a very good chance that you will snip through your actual stitches, and then you're crying. I mean, you know. So when we've done this, there, now we can take all of these out. Tra-la. So now we've got this, and on the back you can see this fabulous stitching. So what we're going to do now is we are going to cut the spare grey fabric away carefully. Okay, and we can hang on to all these in our scrap bag for other projects. These are decent enough pieces that will last, you know, they'll be able to be used. Okay, so now we have a star, but before we turn it inside out, there's all this bulk here and there's all this tightness here. So what we need to do is, so we've already got these snipped, and we need to snip in each one of these close as you can get to the stitching, but not through the stitching. So close as you can get without actually cutting through. One, two, three, four, 5. And then what we're going to do is we're going to snip off these. And again, close to the stitching, but not through the stitching, because we want the bulk removed, so we want the points to kind of have some hope of being a point. And it doesn't if we've got all this fabric in there. Now, Now we have a little star that we can turn inside out. So we're going to find our open bit, which is here. And then we are going to, with great care, wiggle our finger in and go to a point and turn it inside out and push that through. And then we can start pulling the rest of it very carefully, but with a bit of force. Like, you know, this isn't going to be the easiest thing in the world to turn inside out. There isn't a huge gap for it to come through, but it will if you kind of turn it back on itself. And it's like trying on leggings in a change room when they're too small. It's not a pretty sight. Pulling on Spanx, something like that. Right. Now. Nothing. No. Use the tail end of this to pull out the arms. Do I have not easily to hand, so I leave it. There's seam rippers are very handy as little sharp hooks to pull these things out. Now then, now we can use this. Oh, a point. Now you don't want to push too hard, you want to come through your seams. Another point. I'm just kind of running along the seam edge. And another point. We're on a roll here. We have points. Another point. And then this one is the last point, which isn't a massive point because this is quite thick. And then this little bitine will fold in and we can do a little top stitch. So here is our thing. Where did I put it? Here is some basic doll stuffing or teddy bear stuffing. And because we have these cut, these don't pucker. These ones aren't puckering because we've just snipped into them. And we can push. I think I need to get my child up here. Smaller fingers. Noodle this in here. You can make it as squishy or as stuffed as you like. And you just tuck it all in. Oh my god. Sometimes you think, why did I start this? Get in. Get in. Right. Now, a little pudgy star, we can push some of this out into the arms. And another bit. And another bit. And we can use our trusty pokey thing, aka paintbrush. Then what you do is you get your needle and you do some nice little slip stitches, and if you like you can sew some bells onto the fore, and then when you hang it in your tree you have a little jingle bells with cute snowflakes on them. So that's that. Modified English paper piecing. I shall finish it off and put a picture of it on the video.